I got that hype. Every time they scrollin', missing out on the pipe. I'm spitting out gems, yet they keep passing by. Feeling like a ghost shouting into the sky. They see me scrollin', they scrollin'. That's all the info I'm showing, trying to get them to see stop growing. They just scrollin', 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 scrollin'. Talking about the metanomics and decentralized trust, but they just swipe up like it's all just a bust. DAG or Dova proof and quantum resist, but they act like it's vapor, can't say they persist. Got facts about constellation, AI unlock, but they scroll past the posts, won't even stop the gawk. Scroll warriors, I call them, missing out on the chance to get in on the tab, the future finance. I'm showing them strides, but they scroll by so quick. Got data's best armor, but it don't do the trick. They want that fast hype, not the facts I display, but thought gon' rise whether they look astray. They see me scrollin', they scrollin'. That's all the info I'm showing, trying to get them to see start growing. They just scrollin', 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 scrollin'.
All right. The little AI intro track is scrolling. So hopefully today we don't have too many people scrolling, because today I have the distinguished Brandon here with me from PGF. So some of you guys might have seen, this has been on my feed for a while. So for those of you who aren't too familiar with the Professional Grappling Association and like what it is, the Federation. There we go. Mike, check. So Brandon, why don't you, tell the people that are tuning in, what you guys are all about.
So the PGF is the world's first and only professional grappling league. So we do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and we've put it together into a league. Traditionally, Jiu-Jitsu's always been done in like one-off events, so one-night events. What we did is we copied the NBA, NFL, all the big sports that everybody loves. They're all in a league format. We took Jiu-Jitsu, stretched it out across a full season, and that's what the PGF is.
Yeah, and that's what we're watching right here. And so, like, for the people that are like tuning in, like what's the difference between like what you guys are doing and like UFC?
So UFC is mixed martial arts. So it includes everything from striking to wrestling to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just any martial art that works in a fight. That's what MMA is, and the UFC is the premier event in mixed martial arts. The PGF is specifically Jiu-Jitsu, so it's only the grappling. There's no striking allowed. So you can't punch, you can't kick, you can't elbow, but you can break the arm, you can break the knee, you can strangle the guy unconscious. And so that's what we're doing. No striking, but still the finality of the results.
Yeah. And, there's a lot to it. I mean, what I really like about jiu-jitsu is, so like when I was in high school, I wrestled, and what a lot of people don't, I think, fully appreciate is the mental component of the game. And for me personally, those are the kinds of sports that I really like. I was also a big tennis player, fun fact. And to me, it's like, you're really trying to, it's like chess, right? You're just trying to outmaneuver your opponent. So you have to know your opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and you have to sort of like work around that. And it's really like this, there's so much mentalness that goes into it that I don't think is really fully appreciated by people.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Jiu-Jitsu's probably, well, I say probably, but it definitely is like the most technical of all of the combat arts. It requires the longest amount of time and the most practice to really reach a high level. You're talking about 10 years of like basically full-time dedication to hit the black belt level. And then to go from there into a professional competitor, you're talking about only the elite of that group can make that move. And it really is a lot different than what you would think about when you think of fighting, because it is so technical. It's not just like the brute sport. It's jujitsu's. It means the gentle art. When you talk about the translation of it, it means the gentle art. So it's gentle in the theory and the philosophy, but it's violent in the final application and the results. But a lot of people do compare it to chess. It's very technical. It's very difficult to get good at, and it requires a tremendous amount of discipline, not just in your daily life, but within the match itself. And you can see just what's happening on the screen there. That's one of our former champions. He finished second place last year, 𝗚𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗀. He's won the PGF multiple times. We're going into our 7th season, and he's a perfect example of what you're talking about. He's a very calm player, very methodical. It's not a meathead sport, it's a sport full of engineers and coders and lawyers and doctors, and meatheads. We have plenty of meatheads as well. I'm probably somewhere in the middle personally, but yeah, it's a fascinating sport, and it's super addictive especially for practitioners, incredibly addictive.
And I do want to bring up that the PGF has a very different rule set. And I was wondering, Brandon, if you might be able to talk about kind of the reason why and what that rule set is, because it's very different than traditional jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah, for sure. So traditionally in a jiu-jitsu tournament, the positions are scored. So like the position that they're playing for right now, he's trying to pass the guard, and Elijah's trying to get around towards his back. And if you would achieve a dominant position in a traditional tournament, then that's worth points. And then you can win the match based on points. And so traditionally, jiu-jitsu can get really slow because guys are just fighting for these incremental positions. What we did is we chopped the time in half. So traditionally, a jiu-jitsu match is going to be at least 10 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes. Some jiu-jitsu matches are no time limit. What we did is we cut that time down to 6 minutes. And we said there are no points. You don't get rewarded for hitting a static position. The only way to score in the PGF is to win with a submission. So you have to make it happen in less than 6 minutes. You got to force the other guy to quit in less than 6 minutes. If you win with a choke, we call that a kill. That's 6 points towards the playoff. If you win with any kind of joint lock, we call that a break. So breaking the elbow, the knee, the ankle. A break worth 3 points. And if it goes to a draw, you get 0 points towards the playoff. And anything that finishes in less than a minute, so any submission that ends the match in under a minute, is awarded a bonus point. And then we give out $100,000 to the winning team. We give another $20,000 to the winning single athlete at the end of the playoffs. It's addictive, man. Because of that, you get an opportunity, because we stretch it out across the season, you get an opportunity to fall in love with an athlete that may not end up being the champion. It might just be like, I love this guy's storyline. I love this guy's style. I like how he carries himself. And you end up falling in love with an athlete because you get to see their ups and downs. You get to follow their storyline, their highs and lows, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. You get to sort of experience that with these athletes. And I think that's the main thing that makes the PGF so special.
As a longtime viewer, I will say that it's come so far. And, one, in Toronto's very lucky to be working with the PGF, on this new venture, but also just what it has become is so incredible. It's something that's going to be a wonderful memory, but also I'm looking forward to the rest of the seasons because this is going to be the next big thing. It's a NFL, NBA size, type organization.
Yeah. It's global. It's worldwide. It's one of those things that, it might not be mainstream all over the place in the United States, but, we're talking about a global sport, with popularity in the millions. And this is November, right? Is when this is coming up in Vegas.
Yep. PGF season 7 starts November the 3rd. We have a draft to start the season. And so we'll have 20 athletes. We have 4 legendary coaches, guys like Roger Gracie, Carlos Machado, Dean Lister, Pedro Sauer. Those coaches are going to draft 5 athletes to their team throughout the course of the draft. So That's how you're going to determine who is on what team. And then the winning team splits $100,000, so $20,000 to each athlete. But that's going down November 3rd through 8th. And it's all free on YouTube until the finale on Friday. That's going to be exclusively on UFC Fight Pass. It's one of our partners.
Yeah, and this is the teams, right? This is
these are the coaches,
right?
yeah.
The coaches, yeah.
And then right there under each guy, we'll have an Entrana team, we'll have a Constellation team, and we got 2 others, New Hope Regeneration, and the other one's a secret right now.
But yeah, I mean, I think you just I think that was the first, right? Because there's been sort of I think people have sort of figured out by now that Constellation and Entrana are involved in some respect, right? But yeah, so Entrana, you heard it here first, and Constellation are going to have teams. Yeah, Court, can you maybe like talk about the significance of this and like what Entrana is going to bring as far as like the app to PGF?
Absolutely. So Entrana, we have a lot of different solutions, and I do jiu-jitsu. I've done jiu-jitsu for a long time, a couple of years at least. Not like Brandon, he's a wizard. 10th Planet is something that is a group. There's a lot of different satellites across the world, and I approached Brandon because I had this code on the side, and I said, hey, I think that we could apply this in a way that would actually work very well with the PGF, because it is such an exclusive event. There's so many really cool people that are invited, that show up, that choose to be involved because of the quality of the athletes and what this is, right? But they're not selling tickets. It's an invite only type of thing. All those couches, those people were invited to be there. And so we thought it might be good to allow other people to participate, because, there's been some ways that fantasy has kind of been incorporated, but it's never been specifically customized in a way that can also be immutable, and that's where sports are heading. And as a way to also respect the sport, the lineage of what, these teachers, these masters have kind of laid forth and let people kind of build upon, it makes more sense for us to be able to get these events and make an immutable record of not just who people are in jiu-jitsu, how long they've been doing it, what belts they achieved, who taught them that, but also on events like this, being able to provide a way for people to directly engage, build out their teams using Metagraph technology and Entrana Tech on Constellation Network, so that we can make sure that people are as engaged as they possibly can be with the PGF. And like you said, there's all these really cool athletes. Like, there are some guys that didn't do very well at all through the seasons that ended up being my favorite athletes to watch because they were just really cool people. Like the side interviews after the fights and getting to watch them kind of train up and talk about their backgrounds, it's something you can connect to. And these users will be able to come, log in with their Stargazer wallet, and then actually go and build out a team once they pay a subscription fee. Deliver some internal credits, you have a little token, then you can use the allocated token to go and purchase fighters and build out your team. And that way you can kind of compete against these legendary coaches to an extent, and see how you compare to the rest of the world, to these coaches, and see if you could build a better team. It's a way for you to personally kind of be involved with this, but also it's a way for us to be able to give some really cool prizes out. And there's going to be a lot of neat things that we give out for the first places. There's going to be a couple prizes that we give out every day, depending on how the people do. And then we'll obviously have, ultimate ways for people to kind of show that they did well, and then provide a lot of value back to the athletes as well. This is a really good mechanism that provides a way for the fans to contribute towards athletes in a way that is reciprocative of the attention that they garnish for the PGF. So it's a very neat thing, and we're very blessed that Brandon agreed. He came up to Nashville. And you were there, Dagnum, met us at the DNA event with Brock and everybody, and that was a great time, and kind of just hit the ground running after that. Been building real hard. 𝗂𝗏𝗀 is going to be helping me most likely with a little bit of the stuff on the side, and after this we're just going to keep going. So this is going to be a wonderful proof of concept, and then we're going to really try to get out there, start getting the token listed in ways that are legal, compliant, but also make sense for the business, and see what we can do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to give people kind of like an idea of what Court was just talking about, I mean, the fantasy sports industry is currently like a $23 billion industry. So, this is, there's definitely value in here. I mean, you see fantasy sports all over the place. I think one of the most at least here in the United States, one of the most popular applications of it is NFL. But you have like PGF, right? I mean, you've got millions and tens of millions of fans here, and I don't know, is there like anything like that? Is there any sort of like fantasy apps for PGF or jiu-jitsu or even UFC? Is there anything like that right now?
For the UFC works with DraftKings, which is probably the largest of all the fantasy sports apps, and they do like online sports gambling and stuff as well outside of the state of Nevada, which is crazy. You can only do sports gambling in Nevada, but they don't allow fantasy sports. I guess because they don't want they don't want to take away from their sports book business. But there is nothing currently that exists other than our application that we're working on for fantasy sports, daily fantasy sports, any kind of fantasy really, with jiu-jitsu. So we've been doing that. This is our 7th season. We've been sort of using a non-custom solution. We'll just say that. So it hasn't been up to the standards that I wanted, but we have had that placeholder in there. So we've had fantasy every season. So we've already had 6 iterations of it. This 7th season, though, bringing on Intrana and Court and his team, it's been huge, and we're going to have a super customized solution that's going to be way more functional and way more sticky and addictive. So yeah, not only are we breaking in to the jiu-jitsu market with the only league, but we're trying to have everything that a professional league has, and including this fantasy option. So we're busting into a whole new revenue potential with this. So for me, this is a big deal. This is a big step for the PGF and taking us to the next level. We started basically in a warehouse out here in Alabama with just a bunch of local guys. And then the growth has just been so fast. We just did our first season in Las Vegas. We're doing our next season in Las Vegas. We're giving out, the biggest team prize in jiu-jitsu history. And it's the only place really right now where athletes can go to like get paid and do what it is that they do at a professional level. It's never really existed in jiu-jitsu before, but the growth of the sport has just been, I mean, it's basically like vertical in growth right now across every promotion. And the PGF is the top promotion leading the way in that and just exploding.
And yeah. And so, I mean, obviously you guys have been around for a while. And so what about blockchain? Like how did you come about thinking that this was a solution that you needed to have for the PGF?
Well, I mean, there's just so many ways you can go with blockchain and crypto that could benefit something like this. Now, I'm not I definitely don't want to leave the impression with anybody that I'm some crypto blockchain expert. I am not, but I am a user of these things. I've been a user of these things for quite some time, for several years before I ever got involved with the PGF. And I mean, I feel like there's just so many ways. Like the fantasy to me is the most obvious way, but also compensating the athletes. Like this is a way that we can put some money in their pockets, or at least put some tokens in their pockets. What they're going to do with the tokens, is a totally different thing. This is a way for us to have like records that are formed, immutable and unchangeable, so that we can have official records for grappling for the PGF. I mean, we're talking about revenue opportunities. We're talking about stickiness, addictiveness opportunities for fans. We're talking about engagement opportunities. I really think that it's just a natural marriage. And it's kind of crazy to me that nobody else has made a move in the sport like this before. But to me, it's just very, very obvious. Initially, we considered setting the PGF up as a DAO that was just fan owned. We decided not to do it that way, but that was kind of when we were originally forming the concept of the PGF, that was something that was on the table for us to do. And I think it would be cool if we had like teams, like say there was a Constellation DAO that owned a team. I think that would be so sick. You know, that could be something that happens moving forward, but I would love to see stuff like that start popping up. Right now, we just run 4 teams per year, or per season, but I do expect eventually we're going to have a whole like global network of teams that enter this thing, and it's growing fast.
Yeah. Kind of like
fast. It's almost out of my control.
Yeah, kind of like Formula One, right? Where it's just like an ongoing circuit, right? Yeah, and you've got the Red Bull team, and then you've got the Ferrari team.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, just like, so I know that there's this app, and you know, I think Court has talked about the fantasy component to it, but using, you know, specifically using Constellation's Metagraph technology and the ability to get all these like external data sources. Like before we jumped on here, you know, we were talking about AI. Like I could even see a world in which you sort of tied in AI to this, right? Because fighters could actually use this to train better and to like analyze their components. I mean, like, look at what we're looking at right now. I mean, there's so much data on the screen that could be leveraged in other ways other than just like a fantasy app component.
Yeah, yes. Dude. Go ahead, Court. I'll let you run on this.
So we've spoken about this, and I've been working on this extensively. So there is a way for us to create a grid and actually train up, you know, a machine learning environment to actually be able to understand what is going on and provide advanced analytics in real time. So as we build out this platform, we're also going to be using the Metagraph technology to be able to create 3D, you know, actual environments for analysis. And from that, you know, fighters can do a lot of neat things in terms of their training, but also the engagement that we're going to see from the people using the app. We can provide advanced statistics and odds for certain things, and also start to be able to price the fighters in the way that they should be internally based on outcomes that happen, right? And there's a lot of advanced application of technology like this, you know, once we have certain models trained out, with the help from all of the black belts that are associated with this, there's plenty of ways for us to actually, you know, use this in, let's say, a DoD application for training, because there's a lot that can be done with, you know, painting 3D images into metagraphs and looking at that data, and providing then that module to other businesses, even the PGF fantasy module to other businesses. You know, that's additional revenue for the PGF that, you know, over the long term, after we build out these solutions, is something that is really going to be quite substantial. And the applications are very valuable. And they start here, but they can grow in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I really think the most obvious use for AI as far as the PGF is concerned is how it relates to the fan, like how allowing the fans to use that to kind of make their decisions about the fantasy. You know, all these, like you said, there's tons of data points happening on the screen right now. We take all these analytics, we take all these results, we train an AI to be basically a PGF expert, and then you consult the AI on who should I put on my fantasy team tonight. You know, I think that's a super like obvious application for it. And once we build that out with PGF as proof of concept, you can then take that and scale that across to, you know, now any grappling league or any even MMA league would be able to take that and use it for their own purposes, and that would be revenue that sits on top of the PGF after a licensing.
Yeah, I mean, it could, you know, it's just a tool and it can help somebody. I mean, these AI algorithms obviously like aren't perfect, right? Like I think if you had just thinking it out right now as we're talking. So like if you had the data on both of these fighters, right? So the AI could probably come out with some sort of deterministic outcome based on probabilities, right? Like
Yes.
the guy, whoever's on the top right now, right? You know, maybe the algorithm knows the other fighters' strengths and weaknesses, and you know, it could probably saying beforehand, right? It would say, you know, look, I think with like an 80% certainty that this guy is probably gonna win the match. But what you can't account for is all the randomness, right?
Right.
Right? Like just somebody breaking an ankle or something.
Well, you know, basically the AI becomes a really smart and really well-informed sports analyst, you know, so it's going to make his predictions. You may not, again, you don't know what's going to happen, but based on
Yeah.
this guy has a 51% finish rate, this guy goes to a draw, this other guy goes to a draw 72% of the time, whatever those numbers, and this guy prefers playing top position, this guy prefers playing bottom position. But anyway, you just start comparing those analytics against each other and you spit out a prediction to the match, or you spit out this guy has a higher chance of scoring fantasy points, even though nobody's looking at him. When you go into the deep analytics, this guy's got good fantasy points. You should draft him to your fantasy team user. And then you, as the user, go grab that guy. You put him on your fantasy team. He scores you more tokens than you would have scored. And now all of a sudden that AI becomes very, very useful to you because it's helping you pick winners.
Yeah. Now the other thing, because I know already like what some people are probably gonna say, and it's only natural to sort of just look out there in the field and see if there's somebody doing you know, something similar, you know, and I think competition is great, but for all the crypto people, some of them are going to be like, oh, this is this is karate combat, and so for those like maybe Court, can you you know, maybe differentiate like what is different about this app than karate combat? You know, I mean, they're both martial arts and they're both an app on using distributed ledger technology, but you know, I think that that's probably the only similarities, right?
Yes. So Karate Combat, wonderful promotion, right? I've been to quite a few of those, and they're nice, right? Actually, the one in Austin, we ended up not being able to make, but there's a lot of people that are interested in it. They were the first movers in the space, right? But they are also not based in the United States. They operate here, but you know, the liquidity pools, it's not that they're set up just terribly. But the concept in and of itself is not something that, let's say, Entrana or most likely Constellation would want to do, right? The structure of this, in my opinion, is a very compliant and safe structure. We're not enabling gambling, even though there's no losses. You know, what we are doing is allowing people to participate for prizes that, you know, otherwise would be worth either a lot of money or, you know, some tokens. It's different than what you see on Karate Combat because there's no liquidity pools. There's no massive amounts of money running through those liquidity pools from the users to other users right after without any intervention. You know, obviously, if anybody does receive a monetary reward, we KYC, you know, we AML. It's just a lot safer in terms of the long-term time horizon of operation. With the way that we've seen like DARA, you know, the Digital Asset Regulatory Authority, and CFTC, SEC going after people, we designed this in a way that we know for a fact, based in Nevada or Texas or Alabama or anywhere else, this would be considered very legal, very safe, just an application that you can participate with as opposed to, like, let's say, gambling, right? The ultimate goal is to get those licenses potentially, or to give our technology that we've created together to some of those people that do that, right? But our goal is not to just go out and immediately start competing with DraftKings or to allow people to participate in a system like that. It's much more focused on the PGF as opposed to like gambling and using these guys as like, you know, a stake, you know?
Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. Like for me, all I'm thinking about at all times is how can I serve jujitsu better? That's where my heart is at. That's where all of my motivation comes from. I don't, just to be totally frank with you, I don't care if I ever make $1 off of this. I'm going to do this if it cost me money because I believe in jujitsu. I believe in the power of jujitsu to change people's lives, to enhance communities, like to bring people together, to just for your health, just what it can do for you personally. I believe in jujitsu because I've seen the results of what it does for me, for my family, for my friends. And I want as many people as possible involved in jujitsu, even if it's just them watching and observing it from the outside and watching the PGF. And so for me, when I start thinking about crypto and blockchain and fantasy, I'm thinking about how can I make people want to see the PGF more? How can I make people want to see jujitsu more? How can I build this league up so that I turn around and give it back to the athletes and back to the fans? I'm thinking long-term legacy. And so for me, anything that feels shady, like I'm not doing that on any level. I want long-term, I want compliance, I want nothing illegal. Your boy ain't trying to get in trouble in any way ever. And so if maybe it's legal now, but people are looking at it, I'm out. I want everything to be on the up and up because you mentioned F1 before. I intend to sit this thing down in front of Rolex one day and go, Rolex, you want a team. I intend to sit this thing
Hmm.
down in front of these large corporations that are Monster, Red Bull. I'm going to sit this thing down in front of them and go, it only makes sense for you to have a team. And I want them to be able to see it as a logical play, not something that they got to go, I don't know if we really want to. I need everything to be
Yeah.
compliant. I need everything to be on the up and up. And I need it to be something that the athletes, the fans, me, my kids can all be proud of and never have any questions about. And so that's why it just made perfect sense for me to want to deal with Intrana and with Court because I know that those are things that they care about. And those are things that are like foundational, not just to the PGF, but to me. Like I want to do what I think is the right thing. So yeah. Anyway, I
Yeah, and
got off on a
there's
tangent
lots of,
there,
I
but
mean, no. I mean, you bring up I mean, tons of interesting points that are totally applicable. I mean, it's something that I've been talking about before it was actually like a trendy thing. Now people are uh, seeing the importance of regulation and standards, and I think some are slowly realizing that that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, there's no way you're going to get some serious player to get involved in your stuff if it's run with and or associated with any scammy people. And so being compliant is totally going to be a necessity, right? There's no way you're going to convince somebody like Rolex or Red Bull to want to partner with you when you're running some sort of shady operation using some sort of offshore banking in the Cayman Islands, right? I mean, that's just not even going to be a thing. But the other interesting application that blockchain brings potentially to this is like ownership, right? So like the people that are fans could be like owners in the PGF, right? And I don't know if you guys have like different gyms, all over the states or even the world, but like these gyms essentially could, like be nodes, I guess. I mean, I'm just kind of like thinking out like all the different ways that this could be applied here, right? And
yeah, I
then
mean, we don't have it set up
you're
like that right now, but I
yeah
mean, like we were talking about a DAO owning a team. And to me, that seems like the coolest possible idea. Like an Intrana DAO and everybody
yeah
like that's involved owns a little piece of that team and they have like voting
yeah
rights on what athletes they're going to select and how much their salary is going to be. Yeah, I think that's a super cool idea. Um, yeah, Court
yeah, and
probably
it
have a
could
lot
like
more insight to that than I would.
Yeah,
yeah,
for
and
the
you could
DAOs,
unlock like memberships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right, Dagnum. Like the validator nodes that we could apply, the delegation for these different things. There's a tremendous amount of application that we could provide to the gyms. Like the gyms themselves, even if they just had a laptop, plug in, become a node for the validator of, let's say a PGF metagraph, and then all of a sudden, not only are they contributing, but they can also help validate some of the information it provides to the PGF. So there are, very specific ways that we could use that tech that way, but also just DAO ownership. Sponsoring a team, owning a team, that long-term, I guess, value proposition for somebody that would be participating in that is valuable. I mean, and it's pretty wild because if you look at, the brand association alone, the individuals that are involved in this, I mean, the legends of this sport, the people that created this sport, this art, they are not just helping, like they love it. They are all there. They all want to be a part of it because they all see what it means. And it's a very special thing, so that association is crazy.
We got 10-time world champion 𝗂𝗽𝗱𝗁𝗁, just universally recognized as the greatest jiu-jitsu player of all time. He was a coach last season. He's a coach again this season. So he may be the coach for one of these Constellation or Entrana teams. You'll be working with literally the greatest to ever do it. We got Eddie Bravo, who's my coach. Everybody's familiar with Joe Rogan. Eddie Bravo gave Joe Rogan his black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's on Joe's podcast all the time. He's worked with the UFC for years and years. Got myself. I work with the UFC, with UFC Fight Pass as well. I do the commentary for all their big events. Russell Peters was there last season. I mean, like Rashad Evans, light heavyweight UFC champion. Like it's a crowd full of people like this. Zoltan Bathory right here you're looking at it on the screen. He's the guitar player and founder of Five Finger Death Punch. We just went on tour with these guys with Metallica through Europe. He's one of the owners of the PGF. That's my co-founder, Keelan, right there in the middle. He's our media guy. And there over on the far right, that's Heather Gracie. We call her Gracie. That's Carlos Gracie's granddaughter. Carlos Gracie is the guy who founded Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So we have the legacy of the founders of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. These are the people that started the UFC as well. That family is in the ownership group. So we've got a tremendous amount of not just resources, but like relationships that we're able to pull from. And that's a lot of the reason that it's blasting off so fast.
Yeah. I mean, I remember watching the very first UFCs where there was like no rules. those were pretty funny, but again,
so
that kind of goes.
The first UFC was won by Royce Gracie. He won UFC 1. He won UFC 2. He won his first match in UFC 3, and then he had to withdraw from the rest of the tournament. He comes back and wins UFC 4. I want you to go to the homepage and scroll to the bottom right here on the PGF site. Just keep going.
Okay. At the bottom?
Yeah, now up just a little. Just a little. Keep coming a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more. Right there. Royce Gracie, Board of Advisors. Yeah. So the guy who won, like we're talking about, we have that's literally as deep of the roots as you can go in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Royce Gracie, Carlos Machado, both these guys have been practicing Jiu-Jitsu for over 50 years. Royce Gracie won the first 3 of the first 4 UFCs, and he'll be there at the PGF this season.
Yeah, and those were pretty epic. Like I remember watching all those. Yeah, and like 0 weight classes. I mean, you had, guys that were like sumo wrestlers.
Literal sumo wrestlers.
Yeah, literal sumo wrestlers, like fighting guys that weighed like 120 pounds, right? And
yes, I think Royce weighed. He was probably a 175, 180 at the most.
Yeah,
and I remember a match that he had against a sumo wrestler I think it was in Pride Fighting in Japan, and this guy weighed over 400 pounds. And Royce beat him with a shoulder lock, submitted him, made him quit. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. And that just goes back to the, to the skill and to the mastery. You know, you're not just going to, you know, in the mental component that I was talking about at the beginning, right? You're not just gonna like brute force your way to submitting somebody.
Yeah, a lot of times it can be the opposite of that. That brute force can get you in trouble. So jujitsu really is like the thinking man's art. That's why you see so many people from like professional settings, so many educated people that are involved in jujitsu versus, you know, some of the other options within combat sports. You know, you got people who are master level coders, you got high level engineers, you got people in the space industry, doctors, lawyers. These people are intelligent and they're drawn to jujitsu for a reason because the intelligence, jujitsu is really like the opportunity for intelligence to overcome brute strength. And it's an opportunity for these people to be brought onto a level playing field and for it truly to be about who understands the art more deeply and who can execute at a high level. And you know, there's no other sport where a dude like me, I'm a dorky little kid from Alabama. I'm not super athletic. There's no other sport where a dude like me can rise up to be, you know, uh, I don't want to like say I'm the best in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm pretty good. You know what I mean? There's no way that a guy like me becomes a great football player. Even if I was really athletically talented, I'm just not big enough to become a great football player or to become a great basketball player, regardless of how good I was at those things. But because of the nature of jujitsu and how it works, that's not only possible, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And Brandon won't say this, so I will. He is widely regarded as one of, if not the best jiu-jitsu instructors in the whole world. And truly, and that's why, you know, this immutable technology is something that like kind of is a perfect fit because this is a lifelong endeavor. Jiu-jitsu is more of a way of life than it is, you know, just like something you go and do, right? Especially if you really get into it and you understand what it means. And the dedication and the sacrifices that a lot of these people have made, you know, like they go out of their way. They wake up early, you know, some of them don't work the jobs that they wish they could so that they can train more. You know, there's a lot of personal sacrifice, a lot of time sacrifice, and it happens for decades, you know, and being able to preserve that history, that struggle, in a way that can't be taken away or deleted is a very powerful thing that we can provide very easily for the sport, right? And that's a way to give back to jiu-jitsu, but also, you know, the PGF having something like this, I think, is also a testament to like the hard work that these guys have done, because, you know, it's going to make sure that it brings a lot of attention and stickiness, like you said, the engagement. It's a really beautiful thing, being able to represent like what these guys have done, because it can't be overstated. What all of these people do is unbelievable, and the talent level it's world class.
And we were talking about like the kinds of people who get into jiu-jitsu and excel. This match that's on the screen right now is a super interesting example. So this guy that's walking out right now, that's 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀. He won season 7. He was season 6. He was our season 6 overall champion. Super athlete, superb wrestler, MMA fighter. He's what you think of when you think of an explosive, capable athlete. But this guy he's taking on in this match is Ben Eddy. Ben Eddy is the opposite of that. Ben is a Oregon hippie, born out there in Oregon, moves down to San Francisco, gets into the tech industry, and gives up an insane job in the tech industry to pursue jiu-jitsu full time because he found it more intellectually stimulating than what he was doing. He wanted to pursue it full time. And this is a sport where a guy like that can be at the highest levels of the sport, and a guy who's just a superb athlete like Andy can be at the highest levels of the sport, and then they clash. And I mean, I think that this match you're watching here actually went to a draw. So Ben took that super athlete the distance because he is so skilled and so good at what he does.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it definitely draws something because there's this whole like puzzle to it. And I think that that's what draws these, you know, these thinkers, right? So you got Lex Friedman, right? Who's into this stuff.
An
and
excellent
then you
black belt,
have,
by the way.
yeah. And you know, not a lot of people might be aware of that. I mean, I think that they do, because I think he posts about it a lot, you know. But so you got Lex Friedman, who's, you know, arguably like a super brainiac, and then you got Mark Zuckerberg, you know, who's you know, recently got into to this stuff. So
Yeah, he just got
there's
his blue belt not
definitely,
that long ago. Everybody's into it nowadays, dude. Tom Hardy is training jujitsu. Demi Lovato's a purple belt. Ashton Kutcher, he's a brown belt. Like everybody across the board is training jujitsu now. Jason Momoa is doing jujitsu.
mhm.
You know,
So
it's the
Tom
sport of
Hardy
kings right
actually
now.
went, yeah, Tom Hardy went undercover uh, and competed, and I think he won.
Yeah, he won a blue belt
In a event.
tournament over in Europe, I think in England.
Yeah,
Blue.
yeah, and
So
he just
in
went like,
jujitsu, it goes white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt, and then there's like levels of black belt. There's black belts who wake up and eat other black belts for breakfast. That's the guys you're watching on the screen now. But Tom Hardy, I think he might have gotten his purple belt, so he's like a mid-level athlete. But it's super cool. Like he could be doing anything with his time, and that's what he's choosing to do. You know.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and just to show everybody, like, it's not, you know, it's not fake news. Like, yeah,
No, it's real. Yeah.
like it's real. I mean, he secretly, you know, and entered in this match. I don't know. Yeah, so that, like, oh well, this is from a movie
Yeah, that's
clip.
from a movie there. That's from an
Yeah,
MMA fight.
that's from a movie clip. But like, he did, like, he legit went undercover. I think he like grew out his beard or something, and like entered an event and won. Like,
And that's the thing, you know. And Brandon and I talked about this. There's a large cross section between the type of people that like crypto and DLT and really can be good or like jujitsu, right? But those worlds haven't met before, and yeah, him and I, and a lot of people we know, we would love to see everybody in the world do jujitsu. You know, you could even be, you know, in your 50s or 60s and still learn, and it'll, like, you don't have to go and get slammed and choked out and something broken, you know. And in this way, you know, we have a really prime target market. The DLT folks, you know, these crypto guys, like, they're smart, and a lot of them are athletes, and a lot of them work very hard. You know, a lot of these people in this space work incredibly hard. So one, seeing all these people start jiu-jitsu will be amazing, but also, like you said, just getting them to be involved with it and fall in love with it is really a way that we can spread the sport in general. And this is such a large audience that really has a tendency to be sticky if they find something they like. You know, we saw a really good opportunity there.
yeah. So, you know, as we like wind down here on because we're at the top of the hour, and I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time, but so we've got roughly 31-ish days until this kicks off. What is there anything, Court, that is going to be launched outside of just the fantasy component initially? And one, and I guess number two, like what sort of things can people look forward to? Like, I don't know if there's like a roadmap to this, because this is actually today is the first day that you know, people are actually fully aware that there's going to be like an on-chain like metagraph application component to this. So, you know, like, yeah, I don't know if you wanted to maybe just send us out with, you know, like the next however many months. Like, I don't.
Gotcha. Yeah. So time frame for this roadmap, whatever you want to call it. Obviously,
Yeah.
November 3rd, that's when the PGF starts. So that is going to be up for them, and everybody's going to be able to come and participate. We're going to be doing a couple of weeks of testing here in October coming up. So that's going to be fun. Hopefully, you know, everybody likes the UI. We'll probably have to change it a little bit. That's okay. We're looking forward to having a really beautiful proof of concept, having the fantasy the leaderboards for not just the teams, but the individual athletes, and then the leaderboards per day. And then for the week of the actual participants that are using the app, you can see all that. So there'll be a lot of snapshots that are being produced for the Metagraph from that. And then we'll be recording all sorts of stats that happen inside of the actual app. And that'll just happen throughout the week. Then there's the next PGF season, right? And we'll be building out some of those, 3D printing of the environment on there. Hopefully we can make it like a 3D grid with infrared scanners. But really what we want is a perfect proof of concept for this. And I think we have it. And then it's just off to the races. This isn't going to be a one-off little experiment. As long as, everybody likes it, then we're going to keep going. And we're going to keep providing this in perpetuity, like I mentioned, providing the ability at least to license this module for other leagues, because the PGF won't be going, at least for now, every month, right? But there's going to be a tournament going on every month, and they could benefit from this type of technology. So in that way, just start to grow out that business line a little bit, and then really see how the PGF grows, because I know for a fact it's about to catch fire more than it already has. And we have some very exciting things in the works.
Bam. Well, you heard it here first. Team Constellation, Team Entrana, taking over PGF with a Metagraph application. Yeah. So,
that sounds
can't
so
wait
cool.
to have you guys. Yeah. It is cool. And I actually can't even wait to see it. Yeah, I can't wait to have you guys on again. And, maybe we can, show the app, and, can't wait to actually see this stuff in person, this event. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. And you guys, thanks for your time. And again, just any comments, we're going to be keeping track all day. So just leave replies at the bottom. This is obviously being streamed on X and YouTube. So don't forget to follow everybody here. Follow PGF, follow Court, follow Entrana, follow Constellation. And, you can just keep scrolling past my feed. That's fine. All right. Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, keep scrolling, missing out on the prime. When you finally catch on, you'll be wasting the time. But I'll keep posting, bringing the noise with my call.